I'm Sean Kinney, and welcome to HetNet Happenings, where we take a look at all things DAS, small cell, Wi-Fi, and much, much more.
CommScope, thinking beyond today's technology to help you make the best decision for your network and your business. Telecom Careers, the #1 global telecom and wireless job board, telecomcareers.com.
Welcome back to HetNet Happenings, as always brought to you by our friends up at ComScope, and I would be remiss if I didn't point out that this is our 20th episode, so a big milestone here for the folks at RCR, and certainly something that we're going to keep trying to bring to you every week. For today's show, we're going to be joined by Joe Marzin, who is the technical director for ComSearch, which is a subsidiary of CommScope that focuses on network planning and spectrum management software solutions. We've got Joe joining us remotely today, so he's going to be coming in over a video feed. And so, Joe, I appreciate you joining us. And by way of an introduction, could you just give us an overview of ComSearch and sort of explain your role as the technical director?
ComSearch is kind of a unique portion of our business unit within CommScope. We kind of operate somewhat as an independent company because of the many customers we have and the way we relate to those doing engineering services. But our main thing that we do is wireless engineering services and software to support network build-outs and operating communication systems out there. My primary focus is on the backhaul solutions and the wireless, particular wireless backhaul solutions that we offer in terms of doing designs for customers, providing planning software for customers, and other development within ComSearch to add new features and new technical functionality to that.
So before we talk about the particulars of this new upgraded product, Joe, can you give us an idea from a network operator's perspective of why strong planning tools are important?
I think it hits a number of items there with the planning software. So initially, I think you're looking for efficiencies in terms of using your engineering resources to be able to quickly plan out a new system, whether it's a new market or whether it's enhancements to an existing market. Everybody's talking about densification these days and trying to get small cells in a more dense network. What that really means is you've got many, many sites going in a very small area, let's say. So the better you can get at making go, no-go decisions on sites that you're trying to evaluate, the faster it will get implemented and the more efficient that network is going to be. So the CapEx side, you're saving potentially on not deploying as many sites as you may want to if you were trying to over-design something. The planning software will help with that. And I think on the OpEx side as well, operationally going forward, you may not have to lease as many sites, or you may be able to deploy certain size.
All right, Joe, so now let's talk specifically about the upgrade to the IQLink XG. This is a microwave backhaul planning tool, and I think it's geared a lot towards a small cell deployment. So if you could just give us a description of the product, please.
The IQLink XG product has been around for many years. It was beginning development back in the late 90s to do point-to-point microwave interconnects for large cellular operators. Now it's been evolving over the years and adding a lot of new features. And obviously, as networks get more dense and the links get shorter and shorter, there's other things that come into play that you need to do to efficiently plan out those systems. So the real powerful part of the software is that it can analyze thousands of sites. It has a fully relational Oracle database, allows you to keep track of the sites, a lot of site detail, so you know specifically what antenna is on that location, what radio is on that location, what frequency is it operating on. All these parameters are stored in this database, and multiple users can access it to be able to see that. So it's very useful in that process. So just to give you a general idea on the process is you're trying to import a bunch of site candidates, and you're trying to then evaluate them to see which ones would be useful for a wireless backhaul versus maybe it has to be some other type of backhaul, whether it's fibers, other kind of leased line connection. But to be able to get them in there quickly and be able to evaluate them for line of sight, and in some cases, non-line of sight could still possibly work at certain frequency bands, certain applications. And to be able to then get your candidate list down to a very smaller subset that's easy to plan, easy to procure equipment, order antennas, order radios, that type of thing. So that's what the software is intended to do, take a lot of that burden off of the engineering team, and help them to manage that process in a much more efficient way.
All right, Joe, and I know there are a few upgrades to this latest version of the IQLink XG. Among them is a graphic interface, but just tell us what's new with this model.
Now in the tool that does what we call a radio state interface, a radio state analysis. And what that basically does is it helps the engineers that are designing these links with some of the new technology radios, which take into account using automatic transmitter power control, which is very important to balance the links, and also for adaptive modulation. So you can basically adjust your throughput based on the conditions of whether it's fading or raining or something along a particular path. So these great new features that are in the radios are sometimes difficult for the designers to design properly because they have so many different variables switching state, throughputs are changing as the channel gets impaired. So the tool does a really good job of allowing the engineer to see all of the states and really understand what happens when you're designing for a certain throughput so that you can achieve that and know what that reliability is going to be on those links.
Joe, I mentioned how this product's tailored for small cell deployments. I was just reading the news this morning that Sprint is looking at rolling out a network of 800 small cells in the Miami-Dade County area. And so when you're talking about a rollout that needs to be scalable and repeatable like that, tell us how the new planning software supports a small cell rollout in terms of scalability.
A lot of the features of the tool really lend itself to be able to do these large-scale deployments because you have the capability with the Oracle Relational Database to import-export data very easily. It's tracked very well. You can analyze hundreds and thousands of sites at the same time. So we have this feature it's called a rapid line-of-sight analysis. And what that basically means is I can import a bunch of locations, and the tool will very quickly look at each location to other locations within a certain radius. You have a certain distance that you typically can connect via wireless, and then it will quickly tell you, okay, these 5 are line of sight, these 5 are not, these 5 are close, and then you can do further analysis on those to see if they could potentially be candidates as well.
And one of the biggest challenges to small cell rollouts is a lack of fiber access. So that's where microwave comes heavily into play, because obviously if you don't have fiber to where you want to put a small cell, running fiber there would just blow the budget. So that's sort of where microwave becomes really important, right?
I think it's a good, you're not going to get fiber everywhere, like you said, and it's a good additional resource to bring in. You can still get decent capacity, especially for a small cell. And because the cells are so much closer together, you have a wide variety of frequency bands you can use for these short ranges.
And we've talked for years about how small cell actual field deployments have really dramatically failed to keep pace with the projections for small cell deployments. Joe, from your perspective, are operators at this point equipped with all of the planning tools that they need to pursue large-scale small cell deployment?
There's obviously, from the engineering side of things, being able to make these go, no-go decisions on locations, to be able to do reliability calculations, all those type of typical things, they're pretty much there. It's a lot of the physical stuff that's going to be challenging, I think, in terms of site acquisition, in terms of leasing costs, and trying to determine what the best ones are for all of that. It's kind of why we're part of CommScope. They have these concealment solutions too for small cells that help you make a nice small cell very visible and easier to lease and that type of thing. So those are I think some of the biggest challenges for doing large scale deployments.
And so as we wrap up here, Joe, tell us what's next for ComSearch. What's sort of in the R&D phase, and what sort of industry trends do you guys keep track of?
Within our current tool, these recent features we added related to the non-line of sight module and further enhancements of that is really going to be key for small cell type applications. As you're talking about now, your sites are much lower, so you have a lot of buildings and trees and clutter type things that could impair your line of sight. And our chief scientist, Dr. Treacle, has worked on these algorithms to basically model this now, rather than having to just try to put it up and measure things all the time, a lot more field intensive. So we can pretty accurately predict, and this has been validated with a major radio vendor as well, to show that our model predictions are very close to what they measured on some trial links. And we're going to be doing further validation of that model. Like I said, it can treat buildings, it can treat trees, and predict those type of propagation characteristics. But we're also involved in some other areas too. We're very much into the spectrum sharing between different types of users. So we've done a lot of work for developing solutions for that. We did it with the AWS and microwave sharing solutions. We're also looking and doing stuff with the 3.5 gig band, where you've got the federal government sharing with priority access and general access users all on the same frequency range, right? This spectrum access system. So we're involved with some of that, development for that. And we have been involved in the TV white space area too, where you have this database that kind of manages how channels get assigned based upon where physically the user is. So I think just leveraging ComSearch's database propagation, interference analysis expertise into some of these new areas is kind of a focus where we're heading.
All right, Joe. Well, I really appreciate you joining us here on HetNet Happenings, and of course, a big thank you to you and to our sponsor, CommScope. To the folks at home, I'd like to encourage you to check out the latest in daily telecom, ICT, and IT news at rcrwireless.com. Very conveniently, you can get all of the news of the day delivered right to your inbox if you subscribe to our daily email newsletter. For multimedia content and back episodes of HetNet Happenings and other RCR TV productions, I'd encourage you to check out our YouTube page as well as the RCR TV subsection of our main webpage. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.
HetNet Happenings is a production of RCR TV. To reach Sean Kinney or to suggest a show topic for HetNet Happenings, you can reach Sean at skinney@rcrwireless.com, on Twitter at SeanKinneyRCR. To find out more about the latest in HetNet and all things wireless, dig into rcrwireless.com.